Thank you to everyone who's gotten the cookbook so far. I have both of these available right now, both in Kindle and paperback. The link is down below if you're interested in buying these, and let's get started. Hey there, my meaty friends. Today, I wanted to make an appetizer that was pretty much 2 ingredients and make it as good as possible. This is going to be the first attempt because it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to, but for now, I'm going to call it the short rib cheese chip. The reason I picked short ribs is because it's a very tasty cut of beef. It's got bone in it, it's got a lot of interconnected tissue, it's got fat, and it's got some good protein that breaks down very nicely. For this recipe, I went with about 2 pounds of bone-in short ribs. Lay these all out and get them seasoned up generously with some salt. And you want to do this on both sides as well. Alright, now we'll just set these aside. What? Don't look at that. Stop looking at that. That's nothing. Place a pan over medium-high heat, and we'll add our short ribs and meat side down. If you're going to do this bone side down, please reconsider because that just doesn't make sense. We're trying to get a really good sear on the meat so we can have more flavor. After 5 minutes of searing these things, they've got a very nice color on at least one side of them. And that's good because it's also going to be stuck to the bottom of the pan. Let's go ahead and give all of these a nice little gentle flip, and we will cover this with some beef broth. I poured in probably 3 to 3.5 cups of beef broth that I made from beef base, but feel free to use any kind of broth you want, homemade or not. Extra flavor in the form of black pepper, probably about 1/4 teaspoon, as well as some dried thyme. Again, another 1/4 teaspoon. You don't want to go crazy with thyme because, as you know, there's only so much time left because the clock is always ticking until we cover it with a lid or, in my case, another pan because I don't own any lids. After about 15 or 20 minutes, this is what they start to look like. The bones are trying to fall off, and in fact, some of the bones do fall off. You really want to wait for all the bones to kind of just do what this just did, but I was impatient and I went ahead and pulled all the bones off anyways. I cover this back up and let it cook for an additional hour and 45 minutes. The next time I do this, I will likely be using the Instant Pot because that hour and 45 minutes felt like an eternity. However, what I was very happy to have was this reduced liquid as well as a big disc of beef tallow after saving all those liquids. I was hoping that these would be fall apart tender, but I wasn't willing to wait an additional hour to make it that way. So I just cut it up with my sharp knife. Next up, let's pull out a baking sheet and line it with a silicone baking mat or parchment paper if you'd rather use that. So for the second main ingredients of this dish, I went with sharp cheddar cheese. All I did with this was simply grate it on the small holes of a box grater. And I think this next step is where I made the mistake. I went ahead and placed all the meat on top when in reality what I should have done is went ahead and thrown this cheese in the oven and getting it a little bit crispy beforehand. Because after I pull it out of the oven, a lot of grease was left over from this cheese. Not to mention that this short rib is pretty fatty as well. But either way, I threw it into the oven at 350 degrees for about 8 minutes. When I was first looking at it, I saw the edges of the cheese. I was like, oh my god, it's burnt. I can't believe I did this to myself. But as you see, as I was trying to get it off, it had a little slip and slide effect that is very unpleasant to watch. This was even 15 minutes after I pulled it out of the oven. It had been cooling on that rack for a little while. But in this house, we push forward and we persevere. Cut this into squares